Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Education Series produced by the Australian Fitness Academy. It's like progressive overload for your brain. Today's episode, we've got Steph here. Say hi, Steph.
Hello, everyone.
Excellent. We've got Steph here. We're going to talk about triathlon programming. So this was we did a bit of an Instagram poll, I guess, the other day. And I think Mads sent this one through, so thanks for answering, Mads. But Mads just wanted to know a bit more about triathlon programming. So I thought I'd bring Steph on for this one. She's our resident triathlete.
Yes, I give it a go.
Yeah, more than a good go, I think she does. So yeah, I thought it was a good chance to get on and discuss a few more topics about triathlon programming. So I've done a previous podcast on concurrent training, which is a good one. I'll put the link to that in the description below. So if you're interested in and that relates to triathlons a little bit because you're training for potentially two different outcomes, strength or aerobic endurance. So concurrent training, if you haven't listened to that one, check the link in the description. That's a really good one. But today's episode is just going to focus a bit more on the general triathlon programming. And Steph, I'll hand over to Steph in a second, I think, because she'll be able to take us through a whole lot. But it will give you some ideas of things to consider if you're thinking about putting together a triathlon program, or you've got a client that's looking to do a triathlon, because they're getting bigger, I think, Steph, in terms of there's a lot of old school triathletes out there like yourself who have done triathlons for years, but they're almost the new sort of fun run style thing, like the goal sort of thing, which I think is cool.
They're a lot more welcoming, a lot less intimidating.
Yep.
They've got a lot more options for, they call them fun tries.
Yep.
So smaller duration, and it allows anyone to give it a go.
Yep.
You don't have to be, quotation marks, an athlete to give it a go.
Yep.
A lot more options there.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Another good sort of, I guess, sport you can get into without, the fear of needing to be super, super, super fit.
Correct.
And there's, like you said, there's different races for different levels, so you don't have to go and do a Hawaii Ironman and be running marathons.
Exactly, yes, yeah. You can just, like even some of the ones in Melbourne in the series that's sponsored by 2XU, they have the swim, which is 150 metres.
Yep.
So by the time you've gone out into the water a little bit, you could almost run if you don't want to swim.
Yep.
They encourage you to swim, but if you need to, you can put your feet down on the ground.
Yep.
So it's very welcoming for beginners.
Yeah, cool. So a good topic, I think, and I think we're right pretty much bang in the middle towards the back end of the season too. So
in Melbourne.
Yep. Nicely timed podcast. But yeah, what thoughts have you Steph's jotted down some notes, which is good. What sort of thoughts do you think about when you come up with a triathlon program?
So the first thing is the distances you want to achieve, or your client wants to achieve, and also being aware that you're training for multiple disciplines. So you've got to train for a swim.
Yep.
You've got to train for a bike ride. You've got to train for a run.
Yep.
You also need to be able to make sure you keep up some sort of strength work, stability.
Yeah. We might talk about the strength work probably towards the end, I think, because that's a big component of how it sort of ties in. It's easy to forget, and there's probably, depending on the triathlete's background, they've come from sort of the aerobic training background or strength training background. So both are important, obviously.
And trying to fit it all in. The other one is your mobility. A lot of the movements on the bike is a rounded posture. Swimming is a pull rounding kind of, if you don't stretch out. So mobility is really important as well to put into your program.
Awesome. I think my question off the bat, do you think, obviously it's an aerobic sport. You obviously need to practice, swimming's a big one. Obviously you need to practice swimming to get better at it.
Yep.
But if I just do endless kilometres on the running, for example, to improve my aerobic fitness, will that help me as a triathlete?
It won't hurt.
Yeah,
it will help because it is improving, as you said, your aerobic fitness. But your quad strength to push through for a bike ride will be limited, and you'll notice, again, it depends on what your goals are.
Yep.
So if you're okay to jump on the bike and just give it a go and get to the end, perfect.
Yep.
But if you do want to do fairly well and not have everyone overtake you on the bike, you might want to do a bit of bike riding as well.
Yeah, cool.
Because your muscles are recruited differently for your different movement patterns.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, so you definitely need to consider all those modalities into your weekly planner.
Yep.
Some triathletes, again, it depends whether we're training for a more beginner or advanced, might have a programming plan that goes through 2 weeks instead of 1 week to try and fit everything in structured.
Yep.
You need to think about when your goal date is.
Cool.
And work backwards from there as to how you're going to fit everything in. Well, that's what I would recommend.
Yep. No, I think it's a great great option. And we'll talk. And there's also a podcast I ran earlier on periodization.
Perfect.
Which relates to it. So we'll put the link in there too. But that's a good one to check out on periodization, which talks about sports that have obviously competition periods, but particularly events like a triathlon where it's a single day. You got to start with that date and you got to plan backwards from there. I think is a really good
Definitely.
point.
And then you can work on your distances from there. So, your end goal might hypothetically be a 5K run.
Yep.
So you can work backwards through your planner to build up towards that.
Awesome.
And you can apply that for all the disciplines. Then when you know what the distances you're dealing with, you can start to work out the where you're going to put them in your weekly planner, because you don't want to overload.
Yeah, yep.
So you want to think about, am I going to do a run on a Monday and then maybe a run again on a Wednesday, so I'm not doing 2 back-to-backs.
Yep.
Then where am I going to fit in my swim and my ride?
Yeah.
So you need to consider your overall planner and how much you need to fit in to get to your goal distances.
Yeah, so let's say, so what is it like, as an example, we can talk, so it's a 5K run as an example.
Yep.
What would
so usually this is
this
is a sprint distance, it's called. So the swim is approximately 750 meters.
Yep.
Might go up to 850.
Yep.
The bike ride's approximately 20 kilometers.
Okay, sweet.
And the run's approximately 5. So that's a sprint distance triathlon.
Cool. If we go off that, so would you, if we work back from those numbers, do you just increase slowly, say we prepare over 12 weeks?
Like it, 12 weeks is good.
Increase everything at the same time. So we'll start like 1K, maybe a 5K bike ride and a 200 meter swim, and then just slowly progress everything. Like, how do you mix and match? Because at the end then, I'm sort of training all 3 modalities to their maximum.
Yes. It's really important when we go back to your periodization talk.
Excellent. Yep.
To be aware of, you might start to build things and then you might have a week of a taper.
Yep.
So a week where you still do everything, but not at a high intensity or not at a long distance.
Yep.
And then you build back up again. So you'd meet back to where you were the week prior and build again. Don't drop right back down.
Yep.
So in answer to your question about what kind of focus would be on the distances, again, it depends on the individual where they're starting.
Yep.
You might have, my introduction to triathlon was I could run.
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
So I didn't need to work too much on the running side of things. So I'd keep my running training at a medium level.
Yep.
My goal wasn't to get faster in the run at that time. It was just to be able to finish the other.
Yeah, yeah, got it.
So I had to learn how to swim in the open water, which is another thing you need to put into your planning.
Yeah.
Don't just go from pool swims to an event in open water. You need to get in that open water a couple of times before the event.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very different type of swimming and different temperature. And it might also be helpful to swim with some people who might knock you about a bit, because triathlon swimming is in a group.
Yep.
So you need to get used to that.
Always scary, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's getting pummeled.
You get pummeled, yes. And after a few times of practicing that, you'll get more comfortable with that. And also bike riding. So you've got the options of, you could go out on the road, or like myself, I actually put my bike on a wind trainer in the garage. I feel much safer, and I can do it at night time, and I'm okay. So you've got it. There's so many different variables to think about. So when you're planning those things, you want to maybe you might have an impact one at the beginning. So in the morning on Monday, I might do a run, like I said, and then Monday night I might do a swim.
Yep.
So I'm not doing impact back to back.
Yeah.
Then Tuesday morning, I might do a bike ride, so I'm still using my legs, but that's less impact again than running.
Yep.
And then at my lunch times, or my work breaks, is when I put in my mobility and or some strength work.
Yeah, cool. It's a big juggling act, I guess. So if I did a run in the morning, would you would you do like more of a high intensity interval stuff for a run, and then your swim might be like a long, slow distance? Or you don't really think about the intensity of the 2 sessions too much?
Yeah, it's depending on, that's a good question, because you've done that high intensity and then the long, slow stuff. So yeah, if I did a really high, hard sprint session for a run in the morning, it would be a much more gentle swim.
Yep.
So it's either the theory of just getting the Ks up.
Yeah.
Yep, just slow, aerobic, gentle swim.
Yeah, so I think as much as matching obviously fitting all your modalities into the week, you can then look to tailor potentially the intensity of each session. So if I have a hard run, my swim might be easy, but then on a different day, I might do a harder swim and I'll sort of get the Ks in for the run.
Yep. And then as you're getting closer towards the event, you might structure it where it might be a Thursday morning, you might swim in the morning. Then at lunchtime, you might go for a ride, and then at the night you might run, because then you've just done a swim, ride, and a run.
Yep.
But that would be a peak in the week. So the rest of the week would be a bit more gentle to build you up for that sort of intensity, to be able to do it all in one day.
Yeah, wow.
So there's a lot of things. That's why I say start from the end and work your way forward.
Yep.
So start from the race date and work your way
and then
backwards.
Plan your way back, and then you're okay. Here I am on week 1. This is what I'm doing, and you see the gradual plan.
Yep.
Awesome.
Other things to think about are brick sessions.
Tell me,
so
what's
a brick session is, I don't know if people still call them this. I'm old school, so they call them brick sessions. Yeah. So brick and or wall sessions, but brick sessions, it feels like your legs are full of bricks. So after you've done a hard bike session, you get off the bike immediately, switch into your running shoes and go for a run immediately. So you're replicating the ride-run section of a triathlon.
Yep. So it's very sport specific, I guess. And when we talk about periodization, in the periodization one, we'll talk about going from least sport specific to more sport specific. So I guess that's a good example of, as we get closer to race day, we actually want to practice going straight from a bike ride into a run.
And you're right, you do that near race day. Don't do that at the beginning of your periodization, 12 weeks we said, hypothetically. So you wouldn't do that in your first 6 weeks. No need. Just build all your base skills and then add on the bricks.
Start putting them together. That's cool.
And when you start that, if it's your first one, I would recommend only just going for even just a 2-minute gentle jog off the bike. Your legs feel like jelly, they don't respond, and they feel like they're loaded with bricks.
Cool. Another good example of triathlon, and that's the thing, like if you've never programmed for a triathlon, there's all things you've got to think about. Again, needs analysis and stuff for sports, like if you're a strength and conditioning coach or whatever it is, or your client comes in, they train sports, you got to look at, well, what do they need to be able to do and what's the outcome, and then you got to try and figure out a program to help that. And the brick session is like an example of, well, I'm going to give them something sports specific and get off the bike and try and run.
Definitely sports specific, yeah. And then as you're getting towards the end of your training block, we'll go with those 12 weeks. Also remember to train with the correct nutrition. So if if you or your client was going to try carbohydrate gels, for example, don't try anything new on the day.
Yes, I have heard that before.
Actually. Always have a few tries in your training sessions to see how your guts react and how your bowels react.
Yeah. So how long's a general race potentially? Let's say one of those sprint ones.
That's a great question that I should know the answer straight off the top of my head. But let's say hypothetically an hour and 10 minutes.
Hour 10. Yep. Do you find, is nutrition
huge?
Huge. It is obviously huge. Do many beginners as a triathlete?
Yeah. I think as a beginner, you've got so many other things to think about.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people eating a banana right before the race, and as a beginner, I would never put a solid food like a banana or a muesli bar into my body, into my guts, just before doing a swim. But if you've trained in that modality and you've done it in practicing and it works for you, fine. Yes, it all comes through watching what everyone else is doing and doing research. And when I first started racing, I'd start to watch other people having carbohydrate gels before the event and then during the event. So I started to do some research on those. So what I do is I have breakfast quite early, so a good 2 to 3 hours before the race start. What that often means is you're getting up at 4 a.m. to eat your breakfast. And then I personally would have a gel just before the swim. I play around with that. Some days I do, some days I don't. Depends how my personal energy levels are feeling.
Yeah, cool.
And then during the event, we can listen to Tom's previous podcast on caffeine.
Yes, caffeine. Yeah, I did one.
And during the event, I'm not sure if it's placebo or not, but I have a caffeine gel near the end of my bike before the run, and I feel like that makes me just get my second wind. But again, it's things I've practiced with, because some people can have bad effects with caffeine.
Yes.
Especially while you're running. So
that's actually true. You don't have to take toilet stops in the middle of the race.
There's no toilets on the So everything is in practice. Some people go so far as to think about obviously what they're eating for breakfast, but also the night before dinner. There's some people who have a ritual where they'll have pizza for the salt.
I think carb loading is a massive thing. We haven't. That's probably a whole separate podcast, is carb loading and that idea, but. Yeah, that's usually like big pasta meal or something like that the night before.
And then there's other people I've heard who say they won't have meat. They don't want the protein in their
Yep.
guts. And then there's other people who say, oh, you want to eat this protein and go away from carbs.
Yep.
So, I mean, we aren't qualified dietitians.
No, definitely.
So that's something to
Nutritionists are
look
handy.
into on your own and do some research. But there's a lot of factors. But whatever you're going to do on the day, I recommend practicing it before the day.
Yep. No, good tip. I like that because it'll make a difference. But it obviously depends on the length of race too. Like some
Yes.
people might get through and just like, nah, I don't need gels.
Yeah, of course.
And
yes.
smash it out. So
yeah. Especially a fun try. Just think about it exactly what those words are. So it's approximately 150 swim, and then maybe a 5 to 8K ride, and maybe a 2K run.
Yep.
You don't need a gel.
No.
You can even have a banana before you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Do whatever you want to do. Just have fun and give it a try.
Yep.
Try. No pun intended.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's good. Cool.
Correct gear.
Oh yeah. Talk us about the gear. I guess I haven't done a tri for years. I did in a team, so I did a run.
Yeah.
What's the most important gear? The bike would make a big difference, do you think?
Yeah. You need them. I've seen people with bikes with the seats at the incorrect height. I'd say that would be a huge issue with the quads burning up.
Yep.
So make sure your bike is fitted to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the latest fandangly bike. I started on a mountain bike.
Yep. Cool.
It's very slow, but it did the job.
Yep.
Especially if you're starting out and you're not sure. It's a very expensive hobby if you want to start up and have all the gear.
Okay.
So slowly build it up as you're going along as you like the activity. Yep. You could borrow a bike from someone.
Yep.
Make sure it's just fitted for you.
Yeah, cool.
The other things to think about then is, are you going to pop on bike shoes, which will give you a bit more speed, but then you've got to think about how you're going to go through transition in the shoes.
Yeah.
So some people run in the cleats.
Yep. They run in them.
They run in them on the grass. So you get to your bike and then they put their cleats on and then they tap through the grass and then onto the bitumen to the road. Yep. And I've seen people slide over doing that. Ooh. I leave my cleats strapped into my bike with elastic bands hooked onto the rear wheel that are loose elastic bands, thin. So once I run in bare feet and then once I get through transition, I jump on the bike and as soon as I put my foot on those pedals on the top of the shoes, the elastic bands snap off.
Oh, nice.
And so while I'm starting my ride, I then get some speed up. Once I've cleared transition, I'll then put my feet in the shoes.
So the shoes are already locked in.
That's another thing to practice.
That is massive practice.
Yep.
Because you can make up not a lot of time.
Time. Yeah. If you are looking at triathlons for a competition against yourself or other people, time in transition is huge. So you want to get through that as quick as possible as well. The other way to help with that is elastic laces in your runners. So instead of doing up shoelaces, they're already elastic, so you just slide your feet in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
And wetsuits if you're doing a swim.
Yeah.
So again, very expensive items.
Yep.
Very delicate items that can tear or rip or catch quite easily, but they will change your ability to swim in the water at a different position.
Yep.
And temperature of our bay in Melbourne is quite cool.
Yeah.
But also it can make you faster, and if you are competing and everyone else is wearing a wetsuit and you're not, you're at a disadvantage.
Yep.
But you have to practice how to get it off at the end of the swim.
Yeah, then the transition.
You're correct.
You've got to get it off.
So there is so many moving parts to a triathlon.
Yep.
As a beginner, just focus on learning to swim, riding a bike, and having a run.
Yep. Doesn't have to be
all those other things, all those other moving parts. As you progress through it, slowly start to build your knowledge and build your competency. But in terms of programming, again, as a beginner, just start with one day it might be a swim, the next day might be a run, the next day might be a ride, the next day might be a strength session. Just start to gently build all of those up. Don't worry about backing things up or AM, PM sessions.
Yeah, cool. Because you had AM, PM sessions, another thing. I guess because we've got so many things we need to train for.
Yep.
Fitting it in is the hard thing.
Yes.
So 2 sessions a day?
2 sessions a day. Not every day.
Not every day, no.
But 2 sessions a day is very common.
Yep.
And or if it is every day, one of those sessions will just be a yoga mobility session.
Yeah, yep, cool.
So thinking about trying to fit everything in within your lifestyle without overuse.
Yeah. Getting recovery in
the recovery,
too is
definitely.
important.
Yeah.
So I think, triathlon programming, it sounds like one of the hardest things is just scheduling it all.
Yes.
And then once you schedule it, obviously, if it's yourself or for your client, you've got to make sure you stick to it.
Yes, yes. And the feedback of that is, if you're not sticking to it, why? Is it because I'm sore or tired? Then
Yep.
I need to drop back how much I'm training.
Yeah, yep.
Or is it because it just doesn't work? Every Tuesday you said, I've got to swim, but I've got to get to work at 7 a.m. I can't swim. So you've got to make it work for either you or the client. And I do recommend trying to have set days. So if Monday's always your swim day and it works, keep it. Don't change it each week.
Yeah.
Just keep that structure, and then you're just changing the content of the swim, not changing the swim days.
Yeah, cool. I like it. Yeah, a good tip. I think that's a big crux of any gym program that you give clients is don't give them something they can't do. But yeah, when it comes to this sort of thing and you've got lots of stuff, set yourself up well to at least fit everything in. And yeah, don't go for the biggest triathlon to start with. But yeah,
No.
I can definitely see how people get into triathlons. They are fun. So if you've never done one, good little goal. Set yourself
Give it
up.
a go,
Yeah, give it a shot
yes.
for sure.
Especially right now in Melbourne, we've got the fun triathlons. So it's through that the company's 2XU or 2 times U. They're the sponsors of it. So that's, if you were to Google 2 times U triathlons, you'd be able to find out there's about another 2 or 3 left in Melbourne this year.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Good fun. And you can split them up, like what are they?
Team.
Team triathlon, which is one
awesome.
I've done. So if you can't swim, or you're not a strong swimmer, or not a confident swimmer, or you don't really like swimming, you can sort of get a team together and do a leg each, or do a couple of legs, and you can find a mate who's a good swimmer. And
which is an awesome way to break barriers of fear. If you want to give it a go but you're too scared, definitely.
Yeah, no, good. They're all fun days. Like you go down there, everyone's
massive energy.
Yeah,
everyone's
really cool.
Positive. Everyone's there to give it a go.
Yep. Lastly, we'll touch on the strength training because it probably, would you say like 80% is aerobic stuff? Like
yes.
Probably more. 80 to 90% is obviously you got to focus on the aerobic endurance because that's the main event. I would think strength training is obviously was going to help you improve your performance a little bit, but a lot of injury prevention stuff too is huge.
100%.
So don't do strength training alongside it. You may find increased risk of injury.
Definitely. And it'd be the style of strength. So we're not going for PBs with your any strength work now. It's in season, in racing season, it's more about maintenance and, as you said, injury prevention. A bit of plyometrics in there because of all the running and impact and balance. So you do need to program it in. It doesn't need to be extremely heavy. Do your real heavy lifts off season.
Yep, good tip. We talked a little bit about, I think, in the concurrent training one, where it's like, try, if you can, have different focuses at different times. In the periodization podcast as well, is like, off season you might, I'm going to start to build some strength and maybe hypertrophy, but then as we get closer to the season, strength training backs off. I might do it once a week and it's more of a maintenance session to maintain stability and joint stability and strength, and the focus is just mainly around building aerobic capacity. Yeah. Unreal.
Oh, there's a lot.
There's so much triathlon, but it's cool. And that's a quick snapshot about programming. But it's more, think about what the goal is and then work backwards. I think it's a really good tip. And then look at the overall structure of your week. It's very easy to get stuck at looking at single sessions, but you've really got to consider
the week. Yes.
And then, then narrow down on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on, Steph.
My absolute pleasure. If there's any other questions, email Tom.
Email Tom, that's it.
And
Tom
he can ask me.
afa.com.au.
Yep.
And definitely able to keep the discussion going. If you've got any other thoughts on triathlon programming or any questions in regards to this podcast, reach out. Or if you've got any topics you would like us to discuss, shoot me an email as well. Other than that, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon.